Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a super fascinating and honestly, absolutely crucial phase in industrial engineering and pharmaceuticals. Just think for a second about the incredible medicines and complex products we rely on every single day. Have you ever wondered how they actually transition from a tiny, highly controlled lab experiment to this massive, reliable global supply? Well, it doesn't happen by magic, that's for sure. It happens through a really meticulous discipline called pilot plant scale-up. We're going to break down exactly how this process bridges the gap between scientific theory and real-world manufacturing. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with the scale-up challenge, then move on to why pilot plants matter, cover overcoming scaling hurdles, map out the tablet manufacturing blueprint, and finally, we'll wrap up with future tech and sustainability. All right, let's jump right into part one, the scale-up challenge. So here's the big question. How exactly does one single test tube become a million flawless products? You know, when a scientist formulates a new drug, making one tiny batch is actually relatively easy. The variables are small, the environment is perfectly controlled. But replicating that a million times over perfectly, where even a tiny parameter shift compromises the whole batch, man, that is a formidable engineering puzzle. Picture the sheer contrast here. On one hand, you've got this incredibly precise single-drop laboratory environment, and on the other, a sprawling, heavy-duty industrial plant. You just can't take a lab recipe and multiply the ingredients by 10,000. It doesn't work like that. The physics completely change, the thermodynamics change, and the stakes, both for human safety and massive financial investment, are entirely on the line. Which brings us to Section 2, Why Pilot Plants Matter. So a pilot plant is exactly what it sounds like. It's a literal bridge. Think of it as a semi-industrial setting, where designs and operational parameters are rigorously tested at a larger but still totally manageable scale. This is the ultimate testing ground. It's right here that the master formula is perfected and validated before anyone commits the literal millions of dollars required for full-scale manufacturing. And what's cool is that it's not just some sudden leap from R&D straight into large-scale production. It's actually a beautifully overlapping journey. The pilot plant sits nestled perfectly right in the middle. It allows engineers to slowly gain better control over all those tricky variables and ensure much more predictable outcomes as the whole operation expands. Now, while we're in this transition phase, we've got some pretty strict targets to hit. The pilot plant is how we definitively lock in product quality and troubleshoot all those inevitable errors early on. It's where the master formula gets finalized, where heavy equipment is evaluated to make sure it actually performs, and crucially, it's where strict regulatory compliance is guaranteed. Because trust me, you absolutely do not want to find out your mix fails safety standards when you're producing it by the ton. Let's keep moving. Section 3, Overcoming Scaling Hurdles. Scaling up is tough, no doubt about it. You immediately run into massive mixing problems, super complex equipment design choices, and a real struggle to control process parameters just to keep the product uniform. But conquering these in the pilot phase, it unlocks incredible benefits. We're talking improved process validation, early identification of safety issues, dramatic risk reduction, and literally saving tons of waste. It's a huge payoff. But, hope isn't a strategy, right? To actually achieve those benefits, we have to rely on really strict operational strategies. This means comprehensive training programs for staff who are transitioning from quiet lab settings to heavy machinery. It takes strict monitoring, regular equipment maintenance, and these continuous feedback loops where every single finding is heavily documented so we can improve future designs. All right, let's make this concrete in Section 4, the tablet manufacturing blueprint. Let's take a high-level bird's-eye view of how a solid oral dosage, a tablet, is actually made. We trace its journey straight from the raw materials being carefully measured and weighed, right through the mixing process, which sometimes involves distilled water, straight into packing. And finally, it goes through rigorous quality assurance before ever heading to finished product storage. But when we get into the nitty-gritty, it's pretty wild. You don't just mix things together. You have to make real choices. Do we use wet granulation with a rapid mixer or dry granulation, pressing it with a roller compactor? Every single step, from precise drying to milling and sizing the particles to the final blending, every bit of it has to be evaluated in the pilot plant before large-scale compression and coating can safely happen. And behind all those specific machinery choices are some seriously meticulous design blueprints.
Engineers are just constantly balancing formulation development with the realities of clinical manufacturing and comprehensive technology evaluation. It's exactly this careful tech transfer that keeps the eventual large-scale factory humming perfectly, without those devastating, costly breakdowns.
Finally, let's look ahead in Section 5, Future Tech and Sustainability. This right here is a real game changer for the entire industry. The Internet of Things, IoT, and advanced automation are just completely transforming how these plants operate. Instead of waiting for a batch to finish, crossing your fingers, and then checking if the parameters were right, IoT sensors give you real-time data monitoring. Engineers can make adjustments on the fly. They instantly correct deviations. It's a huge boost to reliability and cuts down on so much expensive material waste. And cutting down on waste leads us right into our next major focus, sustainability. Modern pilot plant design is shifting heavily toward greener practices. Innovations in material science are paving the way for process scale-ups that actively minimize physical waste and drastically reduce energy consumption. Getting it right in the pilot phase translates to massive ecological savings at the global production scale. It's a win-win.
So there you have it. The pilot plant really is the unsung hero of industrial manufacturing. It's that vital bridge going from a promising lab concept to a safe, reliable global supply. And with automation and sustainable practices making this bridge stronger than it's ever been, I want to leave you with this. As smarter, greener pilot plants accelerate how fast we safely manufacture complex molecules, what life-saving breakthroughs will this technology unlock for us next? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating process with me today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.